let's just continue the Rambam here in Yezrã. I think that one thing that we'll definitely see here is that in order to understand one part of the Torah, you got to know the rest of the Torah very, very well in order to make sense out of what's happening. We started talking about Mנשה, and then we ended up in the Rambam in Yezrã. We're going to go through Gemara Yomã, and then to Malachim Beis, and take it back to the Gemara where we started from. So let's continue with the Rambam discussing about where Avodah Zarah came from. Now, the champion and the hero of this story is Avraham Avinu, our Zayda, right? And the godless of Avraham Avinu, we ended off saying yesterday, was that he was able to take the intellect of his philosophy of understanding that there's only one Rebbeinu Shalom in the world and translating that into his emotions as well. Somebody's intelligent, so just not necessarily work with his emotions. And if it's in his emotions, it's not necessarily in his intellect, right? If we act on something quickly without thinking, that means that we already missed the boat with our intelligence. So that's how we have to work on it. That we should be able to be, that our seichel, our intellect should be able to be shaylet on our guf. So he was mushka or kazdim in evdei kachavim hatipshim va'ava v'imay v'chala am evdei kachavim v'oived imay and believe by mishayti to maven. It was always bothering him. So that's what we were saying yesterday about, he didn't understand what they were doing, right? So that's where we got into the whole discussion about understanding why we do the mitzvahs or not understanding why we do the mitzvahs. We do the mitzvahs anyways. But to him, it didn't make any sense. And he came to the realization that there's only one God. Like we said yesterday, imagine you wake up today and you realize that 99.9% of the world population is mistaken. It was probably more than 99.9% because he was just about the only one that wasn't. And he also understood the ishtalshelus hadvarim. He also understood the sequence of events that led to this mistake. Until they lost the truth. They lost the grip. They lost the grip on the truth. Avram was 40 years old. He recognized Hashem. What's 40 years old? So the Ravid says, Omar Avram. The Ravid says, Yesh Agod ben Shalish Shanim. There's Agod, that's a Gemara Yomã, also Gemara Yomã, that he was 3, ben Shalish Shanim. We're used to that. Shenema Ekav Ashasham Avram B'Koili Minyan Ekav. Ekav is 172. Avram Avinu lived to be 175, because there were 3 years of his life that he was Eved Imayim. Now, there are, again, we spoke yesterday that there are various midrashim that say different ages when Avraham Avinu made his big great discovery. So
that's the coffee in the seltzer box, right?
Yeah. So
11 o'clock.
Yeah. Okay. So the question is, how do we reconcile all the different shittas in Chazal? So one of the midrashim actually goes through and says what happened at all the different stages. At 3, there was one recognition. At 12, there's another level. And as we spoke many times, that as we get older, we have a better understanding of something. So when he was Ben Arboim, that's when he came to a solid understanding. Hikar Avram es Bayroi, came to Hikar Yoda. Once he recognized and he knew, Hiskil Lahash of Chuvis al Bnei or Kastam Alarich Dinimayim. He used to publicly debate them, the people of Orkastim, and he used to answer them. This is not the truth. This is not the way of truth. You're going on the wrong path. And he broke the Avodah Zarah. The Rambam says the whole story of him breaking the Avodah Zarah in 2 words. And he started notifying people. The only one to worship is Hashem. And we bow down to Hashem, and we're makav kabbanos to Hashem, and we should pour nesachim to Hashem. So all future generations should know about this concept of believing in Hashem. And the right thing to do would be to destroy and to break all the tzuras, because that's what they were over to. All those things that they were over to, that they would worship, had to get destroyed. So that the rest of the world shouldn't be mistaken by them. These people think that the only thing in their minds, the only possible creative force of the world, the only possible God would be these tourists. Again, the dog with 15 feet and 17 tails, whatever the martial laws we gave yesterday. So, and if that's the only thing, then we're all in big trouble. B'kevan shegavar aleim b'rayosav, he brought a lot of proofs. Bikesh hamelach lahargai, the king wanted to kill him. V'nasel le'neis v'yotza lacharon, and a miracle happened to him, and we know that he didn't get burnt, and he went to Haran. It's interesting because his brother said, Haran said, I'll also go into the fire. He went into the fire and didn't come out. So there's a Shemi Shmuel over there, which we don't have time for today, but just to mention that you have to be an original. You can't copy just what everybody does. Yeah, famous Ma'isa, Satmaruv, one Purim, so in Satmar, like many other places, on Purim, they have somebody that called the Purim Ruv, the Purim Rav, and he makes jokes, and he says Tyrus, and he says funny things, he entertains the Olam. Anyways, one year, the guy got up in Satmar and he started imitating a Satmaruv used to daven. These recordings and videos of Satmaruv, of how he davened, and he used to cry a lot, and it was very emotional, his davening, and with a lot of kavanah, and the guy was sitting on the table, making his performance, and everybody was crying, and he was crying the way Satmaruv would cry during davening, and he saw that Satmaruv, the real Satmaruv, was also crying when he made his performance. So he asked the Satmaruv, why is the Rebbe crying? He says, Mela, I'm making fun of you, you're not crying because I'm making fun of you, so what's the pshat why you're crying? He said, because yesterday I takadamed with kavana and I'm crying, but because I've been Satmaruv, so then maybe I have to keep up my crying today because that's what I did yesterday, right? Maybe I'm really imitating myself. Maybe I'm not being honest. Maybe I'm not being truthful to myself today. That was a great musar that the Satmaruv gives up. Okay, so that's what happened to Haran. That's why Haran didn't make it, because it could be that he was willing to be Moshe Nefesh for Avodah Zarah, for Hashem, right? It could be he's willing to be Moshe Nefesh to not do Avodah Zarah, but the problem was that he wasn't doing it on his own, he was doing it to copy his big brother. Fine. He got up and started calling out, and he made big announcements. But Kol Gadol doesn't necessarily mean over here with a loud voice, it just means he made a big rash, and he made a lot of noise. To the entire world, and to notify them that there's one God that runs the world, and He's the one that we have to worship. And he was traveling and calling out along his travels along the way to gather people from all different nations, from city to city and from kingdom to kingdom, until he got to Eretz Canaan. And he's calling out to all of them, and he called out to them over there in the name of Hashem, who is the God of the world. The Ravid says, there were Shem and Aver. Why they should be moicha? He says, it's true that there was Yeshiva Shem ve'Aver that still existed when Avram Avinu came around. So what's the whole gadlus of Avram Avinu? Yeah? So the Ravid explains that, so the Ravid's question is, how come Shem ve'Aver weren't moicha against Avodah Zarah? Right? So we could talk about this for a while, but I would like to, it's a big discussion. You always have Talmidei Chachamim. There always were Talmidei Chachamim. There were always yeshivas, and there were always people learning Torah. But the question is like this: how important is it to go out in the world to make a statement, to be mechazik Torah, let's say, or how important is it to go out into the world and to be meicha and chil Shabbos? So it depends. It depends what it is, and each case needs a specific shikul hadas to verify it. Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Are we doing it the right way? Are we not doing it the right way? Again, if we're talking about the mitzvah of teichacha, it's very sticky, and we don't know that we know how to do that mitzvah properly. But the Ravid is saying that the difference of Avram Avinu and Shem ve'Aver was that Avram Avinu made a huge statement publicly that about the worthlessness and the emptiness of Avodah Zarah. Shem ve'Aver hayu mischabim. They were hiding. They were quiet. They were very low key. Ad Shabbat Avram b'Shibur Tzalmei Aviv. You have to realize Terach, his father, was the greatest idol worshiper out there. Not only was he the biggest Ovid of the Avodah Zarah, he sold the Avodah Zarah, and he for sure had many Avodah Zarah websites as well, right? And he had a whole Amazon warehouse full of his Avodah Zarahs. And his only son, Avram Avinu, as a young child, or maybe he wasn't so young, depends on the various midrashim, goes in there and beats up all the Avodah Zarahs and smashes all the Avodah Zarahs, right? And we know that he put the axe, he knocked down all the Avodah Zarahs besides for the biggest one, and put the axe in the hand are the biggest one. So Daddy Terach comes home and goes into his Amazon warehouse to see was Titzach dort mit der Getschgelach, and he comes in there and he sees the big boss and he's holding a big axe in his hand. And the other guys are smashed into bits on the floor. So he says, "Remele, what's geschehen da? What happened here?" He says, I don't know what happened. He got upset at everybody and took his axe and beat everybody up. And he says, "Remele, how could you say such a thing? You know, this guy's only made out of sticks and stones." He said, "Abba, ani mevin." The question is, how come you're not mevin? I understand that the Getschgelach Avodah. What are you doing this for? Yeah, so we know that. So there was a big statement because Terach was a very, very important person in this world, meaning in the world of Avodah Zarah, and he got rid of all of them. Truth to be told, Vayomas Terach B'choron, there's a discussion that Terach did tshuva. So it's Ken Zayin that Avram was mashpia on his father and his family as well. V'kevan shahayu ha'am is captain they love since all the nations were gathering around the V'shaylon le'al dvarav. So people started listening to him, and people said, "Hey, this rabbi's got a point." You know, imagine a friar guy. He's 45 years old, and a businessman. You know, he's got his life all worked out for him. He's got his vacation home here. He's got it all. He's got his fancy cars. He's got his dogs. He's got everything, right? And some traveling rabbi comes to the town, and he says, "Listen, I'm serving some kichel and herring, and some schnapps. If anybody wants to come by, lecture on the topic of is there God in the world? I don't know, God. Why should I care about God? Why should I care about anything? Life's good." Yeah. You know, the guy is driving around late at night, looking for parking spots. Like, "Hashem, please help me find them." "Oh, forget it, Hashem. I just found them." "Yeah, thank you." Right? So, V'shaylon le'al dvarav, and they would ask him about it. Avram spent time with each one personally, each one on his level, till they were on what they were able to understand, until he was able to return them to the derech emes, to the way of truth. Thousands upon thousands of people gathered around him. These are the people of Beis Avram, the house of Avram. He planted in their hearts this main foundation, these foundational principles of Judaism. And he composed svarim, and he authored books, and he passed it down to his son Yitzchak. Yitzchak continued in the ways of his father, preaching the derech Hashem and the derech Emes, and warning the people to do the right thing. Yitzchak passed down this Messiah to his child, which was Yaakov, Minohu Lelamed. He appointed him to teach Vayeshav Melamed, and he was sitting and teaching him and supporting all those that were congregating around him. Yaakov Avinu Lomad Bonav Kulab Lahavde Levi. Yaakov Avinu took all his children, Vihivde Levi, and he separated Levi, Uminohu Roish, and appointed him to be the Rosh Hashiva. The one that was in charge of disseminating the Messiah from Avram Avinu, Yaakov Avinu appointed Levi. It was passed down from father to son, generation to generation of Shevet Levi throughout all the years, so that this limud of Avram Avinu should not be forgotten. And as the years went by, it was gaining more and more popularity. Yeah, more followers. Yeah, the Twitter accounts had a lot of followers. Yeah, a lot of views. He's getting a lot of views on his videos. There's a lot of traffic on his website. Everybody was coming to hear what he was saying. Until it became an entire nation of people that knew about Hashem until the time came, and they went down to Egypt. The tragedy of the Klal Yisrael going down to Mitzrayim, it wasn't so much, that they were in a foreign land and they were beaten by the Egyptians. The tragedy was that they went back to the state where they were before Avram Avinu came around. They forgot the Messiah of their fathers. They forgot the Messiah of what it means to stay away from Avodah Zarah. This limud that Avram entrusted to Yitzchak, who entrusted to Yaakov, entrusted to his children, and the Shvatim to their children, the Shivim Nefesh that were Yardul Mitzrayim, started to get forgotten. Chutz mi Shevet Levi, the only ones that stood up against the tide were always Shevet Levi, she'amad b'mitzvahs havis, that they always stood up to protect and to observe the mitzvahs of their forefathers. Whenever any of the Shvatim ever did Avodah Zarah, Shevet Levi was always there to beat them up and to put the hurt on them and to show them the right way. And it was almost over, this plant that Avraham Avinu planted. It was nekar, it was uprooted. The mistakes that the earlier people made, they were going back to the original mistake and to their lost ways. And here's a tremendous, powerful line from the Rambam. For Hashem's great and dear love for us, Mishamrai as Hashua Avram Avinu, and because of the protection of the Shvuah to Avram Avinu, also Moshe Rabbeinu Rabban shall call on Avim v'Sholchai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu had Rachmanus on us and sent us a Shliach Nemon, the Av HaNeviim, Moshe Rabbeinu, to us in Mitzrayim. Kevan Shenisnaba Moshe Rabbeinu, once Moshe Rabbeinu started with his Nevuah in Mitzrayim, Ubachar Hashem Yisrael Lenachlo, and he chose Klal Yisrael to be his Yerusha. Hichtiram b'mitzvahs, he crowned us with mitzvahs. V'hoidiyam derech avedosai, Hashem told us the right derech to serve Him. Umayi mishpat avedus kechavim v'chol hatoyim achareho. The entire Torah is built on the fact, as we spoke before, the Gemara Makis says, Bo Chavakuk v'midei alachas. Chavakuk came and summarized the Torah into one line. V'tzadik b'amunah yichya, the tzadik will live by his amunah. Meaning somebody who lives with amunah is a tzaddik, and we spoke what that means, right? Tzaddik be'amunah yichya. But the point is that the Rambam is saying over here that the whole Mesiris HaTorah, the whole Mesiris Ovis, which we daven about 3 times a day, V'zoicher chasdei Ovis, he remembers the chesed of the Ovis, maybe Geil of Neve Neim L'man Shemoy B'Ahava. That Ava, that's what the Rambam is saying over here. Me'avas Hashem Oisonu. And therefore, the Rambam now is going to go on to enlist all the halachos of Avodah Zarah, all these prakim over here of Avodah Zarah, a whole bunch of prakim, 10 prakim, maybe 12 prakim of Hilchos Avodah Zarah that the Rambam is going to go through. And we're not going to do that now because we're not here to learn Hilchos Avodah Zarah, just to bring out the point of where the concept of Avodah Zarah originated from. And the point is that when Klal Yisrael was in Memta Shari Tumah Mitzrayim, that means that they were lost. They weren't just lost. They went back to the original mistake. You know, like a person, Rachmana litzlan, gets very sick, and he finally gets better. And for 20, 30 years, he's living a good and healthy and happy life, and then the machla comes back. Yeah? He remembers what it was like. It was terrible for him, right? The world was in a very good place with the fact that Avraham Avinu established his yeshivas and continued with Yitzchak and Yaakov and the Shvatim until the Shivim Nefesh during Mitzrayim. But Mitzrayim was very, very powerful in the sense that the Tumah of Mitzrayim was great, that Klal Yisrael started getting lost over there, and they started doing Avodah Zarah. Now, the reason why it's important that in Mitzrayim, Shleishinu Hashemam, Shleishinu Haslashainim, Shleishinu Hasmalbusham, they didn't change their way of speaking, their dress, and their names, right? That was the little bit that was holding their Yiddishkeit strong. There were people that were over Avodah Zarah, and they may have went with Jewish names. They may still have dressed in the Jewish dress and spoken the Jewish language, but they were still being over Avodah Zarah. Now, as we saw on Kofal from Beis, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that Manasseh came to Rav Ashi in a dream, and he told him that if you would have been there in our time, so you would have picked up your cloak, you would have picked up your glima, and you would have ran after Avodah Zarah. So the question is, why was that Avodah Zarah so powerful? And what happened to the Avodah Zarah today that we no longer have the taiva, we no longer have this innate drive within us to go to Avodah Zarah? I'm not saying that we don't have Yetzer to do other things, right? They tried to end that as well. That didn't go so good, as we'll see in the Gemara. So this is a Gemara Samach Tesam based in Yomא. It's going through a parsha in Ezra, which in Sefer Nehemiah, that deals with this kufa of the Anshe Knesset Gdoila and deals with the story of how they got rid of the Avodah Zarah. It was a very powerful story, and it's a very scary story, and let's see how it goes. So it talks about the Shem HaMefarish, And Vayitzaku el Hashem Elikim b'kol gadol. They called out to Hashem in a great voice. Samai Omar, Omar Ravi Tem Rabbi Yochanan Vai Vai. They were screaming in pain. Hainu Hayda Acher ve'lemikdasha. This is what destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. V'kalei le'cholei, and burnt the Heichal down. V'katlinu l'kul tzadiki, and this is what killed all the tzaddikim. V'aglinu l'Yisrael me'areyoin, and sent all Klal Yisrael into Golus. V'adayin meraket beinon, and this Yetzer Hara is still dancing amongst us. I mean, it's still alive and kicking. It's still well. So kulum yahavtelon ela l'kbulei ba'agra. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I only gave it to you that you should be mikabel schar. Shenochai f'oisay mikabel schar. That you should be able to force and overpower the Yetzer Hara, that you should not have to serve Avodah Zarah, and you should be able to serve Hashem, and you'll get schar that way. So Zakti Gemara that they said we'd rather not get the schar because of the pain that we have to go through to get the schar. It's not worth it for us. We'd rather not have the Yetzer Hara for the Avodah Zarah, and we'd rather not get the schar for the Avodah Zarah, for the schar of not doing Avodah Zarah. So Nafalahu Pitkum Erakia. So message from Shemayim. There was a ksav that fell from Shemayim. Davakosov va'emes that said on it emes. V'amar Chanina. So Rav Chanina says, "Shema mina." We see from here, Chaysamay Shal Hakadosh Baruch Hu emes. Hakadosh Baruch Hu signs its name Kaviyachol with emes, meaning that emes, truthfulness and honesty, is what Hakadosh Baruch Hu stands for. Oisivu b'tanisa tlasa yoymin. They fasted for 3 days of tlasa l'alvasa. So Masru ne'alayu. So it was given over to them. After they fasted, the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah was given over to them. What happened was, Nofak, it went out, Asaki Gurya Denura mi Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim. They saw the form of a lion of fire leaving the Kodesh HaKadoshim. A small lion, Rashi says in Sanhedrin. Omalu, he said to them, Navi li Yisrael, Hainu Yitzrא Daveres Kechavim. The Navi said to Klal Yisrael, this fire that you saw leaving from the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that was the Yetzer of Avodas Kechavim. They got rid of it in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah. Shenemar v'yom ezayser rishah. This is the Rishus. This is the Rishus itself. V'yishlach oisal toiche eifa. V'yitin es evno eferes al pio. They trapped it in an iron pot and they cooked it basically. Obviously, this is not meant to be taken literally. It means in a ruchnistic way that they were able to take out and extricate this Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah, and they burnt it. So as it was leaving, while they were grabbing it to get rid of it, a little bit of hair fell out from this creature that they extricated, and when that hair fell to the ground, Rama Kala, so it made a huge noise. And the voice, this sound is able to be heard. The scream was able to be heard over 400 parsa. Amri Heichi Navid. How are we supposed to deal with this? What are we supposed to do? Do they have to have Rachman Tzanos B'nai Shemayim? Amalu Navi. So what should we do with this creature that's running around? We're able to extricate the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah, but it's still around. How do we get rid of it? Meaning, we spoke about that the Nachash before the Chet of Adam Rishon was external, and then once the Chet of Adam Rishon happened, so then the Yetzer Hara became internally. So Amalu Navi, so the Navi says Shadiyua beduda da avra, put it in a large pot made out of lead. V'chafyu lepume ba'avra, the avra mishav shoav kala, and seal it with the cover of lead, and because the sounds that it was making very horrible sounds, and probably it was sounds on a ruchnistic level that were threatening as well. And the point is that if you seal it with lead, then the sounds will stay inside this pot. Shenemar v'yom ezayser rishah. This is the Yetzer Hara. V'yishlach oisal teicha eifa, and they threw it into this pot. V'yishlach es even oiferes al pia, and they sealed it with lead. Amru, they said ahoil v'yisratzin. So that was the accomplishment, that they were able to extricate and be mavatal the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah. So the Chachmei, Anshe Knesset Gdela, saw that they had Atzlacha. This Gimel Chamuris, right? There's Avodah Zarah, there's Gilui Arayos, and the Shvichas Damim. So they saw that they had Atzlacha with getting rid of the Yetzer Avodah Zarah. There was an innate drive that people had to connect with this on an intelligent level. It's very clear because we spoke from the Marsha and others that the reason why these three malachim that are mentioned in our Mishnah, Yeravam, Achav, and Menashe, the specific taina on them wasn't because that they were doing Avodah Zarah, right? If a person doesn't have the cognitive capacity, meaning he just doesn't have the brains to know the difference whether of who he's davening to, right? So then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to have a taina specifically on him that he's doing Avodah Zarah. He's not a smart person. He doesn't know any better, right? He won't be able to know better even if you explain it to him. Doesn't have the capacity. A 3-week-old baby Weissnish, right? Doesn't know. But the Tainan Achav and Menashe and Yeravam was that they were from the most brilliant Chachamim in Klal Yisrael. So what got them to do the Avodah Zarah? Okay? So that's why it's a specific Taina on them. And it's not a Pashta Zach when great people go over the edge with Avodah Zarah. Again, we don't understand what the taiva was, as Menashe told Rav Ashi in the Chalayim. We don't know what the Nisayon was, right? Also, Stamazay in the world of Nisyanis, what's a Nisayon for one person is not a Nisayon for someone else. One person will find it very difficult to do something, and another person, each person has different personality and different kaiches and different milos, and each person's milo, each person comes with his package of milos and chasrenis. Tell you one quick thing before we go right into the Gemara. I don't have that much time, but the Gemara says in Sukkah and Daf Nun Beis, the Gemara talks about the Yetzer Hara. And the Gemara talks about what's going to be with the Yetzer Hara. Said Lavai, all kinds of interesting things. So the Gemara says that Kol Gadol Mechaveira Yitzra Gadol Menu. Anybody who's bigger has a bigger Yetzer Hara, right? So I think, I don't remember if it was Reb Chaim Volozhin or one of the other Talmidei HaGoyin of the Vilna Goyin said that he wishes that he could have the Yetzer Hara of his Rebbe. He wishes he could have the Yetzer Hara of the Goyin. So the Goyin told him, you wouldn't wish for that. So he says, why not? He says, because my Yetzer Hara is so big, it'll swallow you alive. That was us, right? So that's how we used to understanding this Gemara. But Rav Dessler understands it very differently. And I heard this from a few of my Rebbeim. One of my Rebbeim mentioned many times. That what the Gemara says, that Kol Gadol Mechaveira Yitzra Gadol Emenu, does not mean that if I'm bigger than you, I have a bigger Yetzer Hara than you. Kol Gadol Mechaveira, if I'm bigger than you, meaning if I'm in a higher Madrega, in Avodas Hashem, that means that just like my Yetzer Tov is bigger than yours, my Yetzer Hara will always be bigger than my Yetzer Tov. It's not about between me and you. It's not a contest of comparison. Who has a bigger Yetzer Hara? Who has a bigger Yetzer Tov? Right? We don't know anybody's internal struggles. Nobody knows what somebody else is going through. One of the things that's mechusim ibnei Adam, the Gemara Pesachim says, one of the things that's hidden from somebody else is was tutzich bayen in hearts, was tutzich bayen in the cup. You don't know what's going on in someone's mind. You don't know what's going on in someone's life. Everybody looks happy. For the most part, everybody looks happy. Right? Everybody tries to look good. Everybody tries to fit in. Everyone tries to look up to par. Right? They don't really know what's going on by other people. If I care, a lot of times the people that look the best, they're the ones that are crumbling to pieces inside. Man, it's a terrible thing. What it means is, Dr. Dessler, that the pshat is that if I'm a bigger person, that means my Yetzer Hara is even bigger than me. There's no kunz to fight with a kid who's 3 years old. If you're 23 years old, what's the kunz to fight with a kid that's 3? Yeah? The kunz is when you're fighting with another person, your age, your size, your strength, and you're able to overpower him, that means that you're stronger. So when a person is able to overpower his Yetzer Hara, that means that he's stronger than his own Yetzer Hara. Because your Yetzer Hara is automatically going to be bigger than you. Right? And it's biyodcha to overpower. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't give you an assignment that you can't do, that you can't overcome. So if you have this specific nisayon, you will be able to overcome it. Question is, how is a person able to overcome his Yetzer Hara if his Yetzer Hara is bigger than him? Because he has confidence in himself, that he knows what's better for him. He's confident in his knowledge of Torah and mitzvahs, and he knows that he has the yechaylas to overpower him. The strategy of a good, the general who wins the war, is the one that has the best strategy, prepares for it, right? So if we understand what a Yetzer Hara is going to put us up against, I will prepare a strategy against him, it's much easier to be matzliach. Well, he may figure out your strategy, right? But then you'll come up with an even better one. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu will trust you with that. And that's what you got to do. And with this is a hakdama to the next part of the Gemara, because the Gemara says as follows. They wanted to get rid of the Yitzhahara of Arayas next. They wanted to get rid of Taivas. Yeah? We get rid of Taivas, it'd be great. You know, when we'll be able to sit and learn 100% focus. You know, when the Torah talks about someone did an Aveira, Stam Aveira, in Chazal, in the Torah, it's referring to somebody who does nus. Somebody referring to Taiv of Gili Arayas. Yeah? So they wanted to get rid of the Yitzhahara of Arayas. So what did they do? So the Gemara says a story like this. So Amru, they said, and Sheknes HaGdela said, Hoil ve'es ratzon, who sent it to es ratzon, Niboy rachmi ha'yitzra da'avera. Let's ask to be mevatel the Yitzhahara of Arayas. Bo rachmi ve'imser biyadayu. It was given over to them, meaning that the Yitzhahara of Arayas was given over to them. Omar lahu, he said to them, Chazu di katlisu leilahu kal yalma. But there was a warning. This came with a caveat. This came with a warning. It said like this: if you're going to get rid of the Yitzhahara of Arayas, the world is going to get destroyed. Is it worth it? I don't know. The world's still here. I mean, I think so, right? So what happened? What's the story over here? So chavshu tlas yomi. So they locked it up for 3 days. Ubo beisa bas yomi b'chol eretz Yisrael le'ishtakach. And they tried to find an egg that was laid by a chicken, and they were not able to find it. So Niboy Amri said, they said, Hechi Navid, how should we deal with this? What should we do? Kalya Nikdele Hechi Navid, how should we do this? Nikdele, if we kill this Yitzhahara, Kalya Alma, the world is going to be destroyed. Niboy Rachme Apalga, Palga Berkila Yafi. Even if we ask for half, take away half of the Yitzhahara. Half of the Yitzhahara of Arayas. Min HaShamayim, they're not going to give us half. It's either all or nothing. So, Palga Berkila Yavi. Kechlinu le'ene. So they popped out its eye. V'shavku, and they left it alone. V'hani de le'migri be'le'inish bekrivto. And that helped that a person shouldn't have a taiva for his relatives. That's basically what they were able to accomplish by getting rid of the Yitzhahara of Arayas. And that's really where the Gemara stops, and that's really the end of the story. Zok Rashi, that Kalya Alma Yichla Ha'olam Shleitei Pirya V'Rivya. If people aren't going to be reproducing, meaning there won't be any further generations of humanity, this would be the last generation of humanity. The reason why this Yitzhahara exists is for 2 reasons: to procreate and to have children, because otherwise, if people would not have a taiva for this, they would not have children, and nobody would be having children at all. And not only would it affect humans, but it would affect every aspect of the bria and animals as well. So it means the world would be over, right? Because really everything in the world works with a zachar and a keva. Number 2, the reason why this Yitzhahara needs to exist is because Klal Yisrael is called Kedoshim, right? And there's a certain Kedusha that Klal Yisrael has that Malachi Asharis don't have. The Kedusha that Klal Yisrael has that Malachi Asharis don't have is that Malachi Asharis don't have a Yitzhahara. So for them to stay on the level of Kedusha is very simple, it's very straightforward, and it's very easy. There's no up and down. When it comes to the Yidden, the struggles that the Yidden have in this area, that's why Klal Yisrael is called Kedoshim. Kedoshim means Prusha Me'arayas. Rashi and Ramban, beginning of Parshas Kedoshim. So, the madrega that Klal Yisrael has as Kedoshim of not giving in to the Yitzhahara is a madrega that a malach cannot be masik. Because a malach doesn't know what it means to have a struggle with the Yitzhahara. A malach doesn't know what it means to be matzliach in such a struggle either. We are called Kedoshim because we have this yechelis, we have this ability with siyata d'shmaya from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and through a lot of tefillah to be able to be misgaber on this Yitzhahara. And that's why this Yitzhahara is still needed, because without this Yitzhahara, there's no Kedusha in the world. This Yitzhahara, he looks very dark and very, very black and pulls us to all kinds of dark and horrible places. But the greater the darkness that the person falls into, the greater the light that he will be zeicher to when he doesn't fall to the Yetzer Hara, when he's misgaber on the Yetzer Hara. Zok Rashi. So yichla ha'olam shleitei pir v'rivya. And they looked for a beis bas yoma, beya hanel de boy b'yom l'fisha pasuk hachimo menameyayim, afilu eitzen she'ibra tarnagolos kreinim b'shbashim b'meyaha. The animals wouldn't be able to reproduce, and it would cause the world would cease to function, because they needed an egg for a chayla. The person needed to eat a chicken's egg. You need to eat eggs for breakfast. There'd be no eggs. There was nothing there. So they asked that the Yetzer Hara should at least go away for half. They asked for half. It doesn't mean half of the Yetzer Hara. It means for a person's other half. That would mean that a person should be able to be shaylat on, that the Yetzer Hara should only be shaylat on, meaning the taiva for this drive should only be lizakek leishtai. That a person should only be able to be interested in his wife and not be interested in other women. V'leila acheres. So kechlinu simu eseinav alidei kchol. They use a certain kind of like cement that they sealed up this Yetzer Hara's eyes with. And that helped that it should protect a person from having taivas for family members. But what's interesting is that what do they do to this Yetzer Hara? They close up its eyes. And that's our avodah, what we got to do also. Got to be careful where we look. The story goes that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not give a person a taiva that he can't control. If a person sees something in the street, the Al-Shach HaKadosh says, if a person sees something in the street, so he saw it already. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not telling you a mitzvah that you can't possibly do. It's impossible. Wherever you go, it's not shaykh, right? So, my Rebbe says this over a lot. That means that if you see something by accident, you're walking down the street, you saw something you shouldn't see, fine. That is not going to be a taina on you for seeing. The person has to look where he's going. The Gemara Shaita says the chassid Shaita is a foolish chassid, is a person who closes his eyes, so he shouldn't see things in the street. So he walks into Coney Island Avenue and a car comes and hits him. You got to have a little bit seichel. Yeah? Just because you saw something by accident, it doesn't mean you should look again. Don't look again. Once you saw it, okay, now you know what it is. Now you know what you shouldn't do. The Eibishter should help us, that we should be zeicha to be mekayim all kinds of mitzvahs, b'kedusha, b'tahara, and have a wonderful Shabbos, everybody. We continue on Monday.